I can't remember when I have been this desperate to watch the next episode of a sitcom. Casino Night is the 22nd episode of the second season of The Office. It's directed by Ken Kwapis. This is the last episode of the season, and there will be spoilers from now as I talk about what happens. Honestly, amazing ending. But we'll get to that in a little bit. It's actually Casino Night, and they're turning the warehouse into a casino hall, gambling hall for charity, for the Boy Scouts of America. And the person who has the highest chip count also gets $500 to give to a charity of their choice. So not too bad, even though they probably shouldn't be doing this. I'm not interested in gambling. I don't understand most of the rules. But it was a really nice atmosphere. Everybody was smartly dressed. Most people were having a really good time. It was actually quite a nice experience, and I rather enjoyed that, which is not what I'd expected. And there are several aspects to the narrative, and I'll get in with a few of them in a moment. But first of all, I just want to say there was quite a nice moment between Dwight and Angela. I really don't like Angela, really do not like her. But there was a little moment between them when Dwight was throwing a dice and then she slapped him. But that's because he kissed her in front of everybody. But to be fair, he'd also kissed Michael several times. But it was an interesting moment. I'll get in with Jim and Pam in a moment because that's where most of my thoughts are. But we also have Jan and Carell. Michael had invited Jan. She said she wasn't coming. So he invited Carell, from whom he bought the real estate. And then Jan announces that she is actually coming because she feels like she needs some fun, which is fair enough. And honestly, Michael should have been nervous, but he was actually quite happy that he had both of these women there. And we had some awkward moments between Jan and Carell, and it's very unclear what Jan is really thinking or how she is really feeling. We have this pretty great moment outside with Jan and Jim, and clearly I don't think Jan knows how she feels, but as she points out, she drove over 2 hours just to be here, and I don't think she was there to have fun. I think she was there to be with Michael. That sounded strange. I'm sure she could have fun with Michael, maybe. But I think definitely that was her motivation. She wanted to see Michael. And I have no idea what, if anything, they're going to do with that going forward, but I'm very keen to find out. Then we come to Jim. And we have a nice little moment in the beginning where Jim tells Dwight that he can control things with his mind. And he moves the coat stand, but it's actually Pam with an umbrella. And Pam gives Jim this subtle little wink. And it was just so beautiful. And she's really happy now because she's planning her wedding. She's really good friends with Jim. There's kind of no awkwardness between them. However, that doesn't last very long. We, the viewer, are aware that Jim has put in for a transfer, and that would be really awkward. And Jim does briefly talk about this with Jan, and Jan suggests, you should probably talk to somebody about this. And then Roy leaves and tells Jim to keep an eye on Pam, make sure she's okay. And obviously Pam and Jim have a brief conversation, and Jim says he needs to talk to her about something. And I thought, and I assume most people would have thought, that he was about to tell her that he'd put in for a transfer. And she would have been devastated, and maybe then she would have realised how she felt about him, and that's how they were going to progress with it. But that's not what happened. And I was genuinely taken aback because he says, "I'm in love with you." What? I was not expecting that. And Pam quite rightly says, what did you want me to say to that? What did you expect me to say in response to that? And Jim just said he had to tell her. He needed her to know. And he's crying, and it's difficult, and it's heartbreaking. And then we see Pam on the phone. She's on the phone to her mother, obviously telling her what Jim has just said. Clearly, Pam, not for the first time we're made aware of this, but Pam has spoken to her mother about Jim. Now, if you talk to your parents about a random colleague, clearly you have feelings for that colleague, at least in this kind of situation. And Jim then comes in. The office is dark, all of the lights are off. And Jim comes in, and Pam hangs up the phone, and he kisses her, and she kisses him back. Now, I will say neither of them are in the right at that moment, because A, Jim has just kissed somebody who's engaged to be married. B, Pam has just kissed somebody while she's engaged to be married. So I don't agree with what they did, but at the same time, I'm so happy they did it. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And I am so, so desperate to watch the next episode. Normally I leave a couple of days between each episode, but I don't know if I can do that. I need to find out what happens next. Really, really excited. Did not expect this episode to go that way at all. Very, very well done. I enjoyed it more than I thought, just because I don't care about gambling, so I didn't think that would appeal to me. But as I said, it was a really nice atmosphere. It was great to see everybody having a good time. Well, most people. Jan was really interesting, and I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Jan, and I did not expect Pam and Jim's story to go in that direction. Very, very excited for the next episode, and I think it's safe to say that Casino Night is a brilliant episode of The Office.